In 2010, an elderly Indian man overheard his family planning to kill him. Fleeing from his home, he sought out refuge in a relative's home a few villages away and went to the authorities. Rather than prosecute his scheming family members for attempted murder, however, the matter was swept under the rug until it became national news in India and shortly after, international news across the world. Yet this elderly man's family wasn't prosecuted because of a lack of law enforcement, but rather because what they were actually plotting to engage in, talai, is a widely accepted norm across southern India. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Infographics Show. Today we're taking a look at the practice of talai, or euthanasia by coconut milk. Talai, or head pouring, is the tradition of euthanizing the elderly and in wide practice across the more poverty-stricken areas of southern India. Though official reports rarely mention it as a cause of death, unofficially, it is suspected that thousands of elderly are killed this way, and police have for a long time rarely taken note. The practice is meant to be a humane way of relieving the suffering of senior citizens who are already gravely ill and suffering. Yet all too often, talai is used as an excuse to murder a parent or grandparent so as to inherit their estate. While no doubt shocking to most outsiders, the practice is as routine as a birthday or wedding in some communities, with a date set and relatives gathering together to say goodbye, whether the elderly victim consents or not. The victim is then given an oil bath followed by a head massage with very cold water, as the head is where the body loses most of its body heat. This can very quickly drop the core temperature of an elderly person, leading to heart failure. As an insurance policy, however, the victim is also given several glasses of green coconut milk. With 250 milligrams of potassium per 100 grams, coconut milk dangerously stresses the kidneys and when drunk in excessive amounts can lead to renal failure and death. Sometimes, though, victims are instead forced to drink cow's milk while their noses are pinched shut, which leads to suffocation. In modern times, though, fake or unscrupulous doctors will sell families poison tablets or alcohol laced with poison. Nobody is sure of the origin of talai, with some saying that began before the British Empire subjugated India when a prince sought a way to humanely euthanize his ailing mother-in-law. A more modern and likely realistic take, however, says that the practice arose during the 1950s in response to an exploding population and crippling poverty. Whatever the origin, it's a practice meant to be used only on the terminally sick and seen as a humane alternative to living in pain for months or years before death. Yet its social acceptability has seen the practice abused, with impatient family members euthanizing elderly relatives in order to gain control of whatever estate they have. Nowadays, because of their assets, young people sometimes want talai done even if it's just a cold or minor sickness, says Alongo Rajarathinam, Virudhunagar-based Director of Elders for Elders Foundation. Old people are definitely scared of this practice. You can see the stress on their faces. In response to the growing abuse of talai, many elders have formed watchdog and civil action groups, leading to legislation that sees police visit the homes of any elderly that has recently died in order to ascertain a true cause of death before a death certificate is issued. Yet, as the practice has become so widely socially accepted, many fear that government protection is severely lacking. Also, because of its widely accepted nature, many elderly are actually resigning themselves to their fates and requesting talai, not because they're necessarily ready to die, but because they feel singled out and pressured by a society that does not value the elderly to simply move on. After suffering 2 heart attacks, one elderly farmer said, "If my family tried talai on me, I'd ask why. If they didn't answer, I might resign myself to it." Specialists point at the huge amount of pressure on the elderly to remain productive members of a family or not become a burden, leading to them accepting talai or even asking for it outright, rather than suffering shame or ostracization. Men are more frequently targeted for talai, partly because any financial assets are generally in their names, but also because of the social taboos of daughters-in-law providing elderly care for men. Men also lack housekeeping skills, so once a man can no longer work and provide for his family, his utility has simply run out, versus a woman who can continue to take care of a household. It may be easy to judge the practice of talai from our comfortable perch in the first world, but for poor rural India, the practice can sometimes be the difference between starving or not. Elderly care is an expensive affair all around the world, And even with access to just basic healthcare, a sick elderly person can still be a huge drain on the resources of a family unit. Activists thus are trying to improve the quality and availability of healthcare for the elderly across rural southern India, rather than try to fight the entrenched culture directly. The spread of pensions across the Indian economy is also helping to stamp out Talikutal, as a dead relative can't bring any pension money in. Still, the practice is difficult to eliminate in poverty-stricken communities, with one elderly activist interviewed confessing that he's never directly tried to stop Talikutal before when others have begun to plan it for a relative, saying, "If I try and stop someone, they'll just say, 'Then you take care of the old man yourself.' What can I say? I can't afford to keep him." Poverty can force families to make some very difficult decisions that can seem cruel and inhumane. Yet, rather than passing judgment, we should all strive to build a world where all people have access to the basic fundamentals of life: food, healthcare, and shelter. With more wealth being generated across the world in a single year than in all of human history prior to the 1900s combined, the ongoing practice of Talikutal in the year 2018 may be a sign that we still have a long way to go as a civilization. What would you do if your family were starving and you had to make this choice? If you were elderly, would you volunteer for Talikutal if it meant your family could be better off? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video called "How Does the Electric Chair Work?" Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.